Hello, and welcome to Character Class. Today, today I'd like to offer up five five little tips that I've been thinking of. I kind of got inspired to do another character class. It's been a while since the last one, so what I'm going to offer up today is strictly for GMs only. So all of you players out there who happen to be hiding. Uh, Off you go. Off you go. I don't want you listening in and finding out all our secrets. Okay? Are they going? All right, good. Now, just between you, me, and all the other GMs out there, uh, what we've got here is five little ways to ignore the rules. That's right, ignore the rules. Now, RPGs uh, are kind of defined in a way by their systems and their rules. Dungeons and Dragons, for example, is the classic D20 system, which has, D4s, D6s, D8s, D10s, D12s, and D20s, as the usual, as well as D100s. Don't forget about the D100s. But these are the dice that you roll. These weapons roll these dice, these spells roll these dice. This is how they go. It's all set up. Um, some systems are a lot more complex. Some systems are a lot more simpler. Some systems don't even have dice that you roll. But every RPG system out there has rules that the GM follows, that the GM expects the players to follow as well. Now, there comes a time in any game master, dungeon master, storyteller, whatever you call yourself, there comes a time in everyone's life when there's going to be a point when it is actually more beneficial to ignore the rules. Now, usually the only time that I will ever do this in any game that I'm running is if ignoring the rule will make for a better game, will make for more enjoyment from my players, will craft a better narrative for my players. That is always what I look at when I look at ignoring the rules. Otherwise, otherwise it's going to be that nope, you follow the rules. What comes comes. What happens happens. Uh, so let's get right into it, and we will go to the first little tip and trick to ignoring the rules, and that is allowances. Now, what I mean by allowances is that, see, you'll often get situations that will arise over the course of a campaign, maybe just a single session or multiple sessions, where you'll get a player that will want to do something. They'll be like, can I do this with this ability, or can I use my magic to create this outcome? And strictly by the rules, just going absolutely strictly by the rules, it should not be allowed because the rules say no, you can't do that. But if you think it will cause some interesting drama or just create an interesting scene, uh, as the dungeon master, you can allow it. Now, it's never good to basically create that precedent by going, yeah, I'll let you do that this time, because then that lets them know. The best way to do that is to kind of keep your breaking and bending of the rules obfuscated by having them make a roll. Basically, say if they want to do something, for example, in a White Wolf game, if they want to use their magic, if they're mages and they want to use their magic to do something, to create some effect, and you're like going, that will that could be interesting if I let it happen, but the rules don't really say that it can. So you just allow them to do it by saying, all right, make a roll. And you get them to make their roll. And then you maybe roll some dice as well. behind your little DM screen or hidden away somewhere where you're rolling it and compare them and be like, all right, it succeeds like this. And that way you make them think like anything is possible, even though anything isn't, but you you maintain that mystery, even while letting them get what they want and channeling it into making an interesting scene happen or an interesting outcome. And allowances are fine. They're absolutely fine to do. You shouldn't discourage that sort of thing. All right, on to the next one we have um, fudging the dice. Now, this is something many of you probably already know about, something that many of you maybe even do. Uh, Now, usually, for any dungeon master, your rolls will be kept in secret. The players won't be able to see them. You'll be rolling them behind a screen, or like I said, off to the side somewhere where the players can't easily make them out. But usually the DM's rolls are always in private because you don't want them to be able to look at it and go, well, that's probably this many successes, so that means this. So you don't want them to do that. You don't want them to metagame. So what you can do is, if you run into a situation where you've got usually in combat, but not always, you've got things where the bad guys are going to like totally decimate your players. You could be looking at a total party kill, maybe hard to say, or maybe you're looking at if this roll were to go through strictly as it's rolled, well, there goes the party's only method of healing, which would be, almost leading to a total party kill. It all depends on your situation. You really have to look at it, but it doesn't have to be in combat. But regardless, you've got a situation where the dice are going to cause undue extreme hardship to your players, and that can be okay to do. You can run with that, spare them death and have them captured, but that'll be a later thing that I'll mention. Uh, that's a little bit later. But what you've got is you get in a situation and you're rolling your dice in secret, and you can just be like, I just won't count those two successes, or I just won't count. We'll just say that they rolled this number three lower to make it a little bit easier on the party, and you can do that completely in secret because your rolls are hidden. They can't see them. You see what I'm doing here? That's right. You are the all-powerful god of your campaign. Basically, what you say goes. So if you want to fudge the dice, yes. Now that's not something you should be doing all the time. If you're doing that all the time in order to spare your players, that might be something that you want to have a look at, so that you might be crafting your adventures a little too tough for your players. So you might want to scale that back a little bit. All right. Now on to the next bit. These next little bits aren't really ignoring the rules, but they're kind of bending them a little bit. Uh, as I like to call this next little tip and trick, it's John Cena NPC. Because John Cena NPC is not necessarily John Cena, but you could. You could have him. But what it is it's basically an NPC that comes out of nowhere and, either attacks the players or saves their ass. One of the two is usually the way it goes. And this is a player or an NPC that shouldn't even be in the area, that isn't in the area, because you as the game master know where all the NPCs are, more or less. You should have a general idea of where they're located. So even if they're nowhere near uh, where the players are, you can have them pop out of nowhere, either using magic, either just happen to be in the area, uh, whatever explanation you want, you can put on that. You don't even have to give an explanation if you don't need to, but you can have them just pop up and either give them a nice blindside attack just to keep the party off guard, or to help them out if they need it. So yes, Now that leads very nicely into the next little tip and trick that I have here, and that is rationalization. Now, what do I mean by rationalization? Well, that is where something happens. There, where you as the DM, something that the players do or a situation suddenly spirals out of control, and you have nothing planned for it. This might be pulling in a John Cena NPC. This might be a sudden natural disaster that happened that wasn't going to. It might be an invading army. It might be a powerful sorcerer. It might be anything and everything. But regardless, you have an event happen that is not scripted, is not in your notes, is not planned for. So you're just pulling it right off the top of your head and you run with it. Now, in those situations, some of the best DMs and whatnot can just roll with the punches and be like, this happens because this, and this. Now, not everybody is as quick thinking as the best DMs. So one of the best ways to go about that is you set it up, you have it happen off the top of your head, but you don't really offer any explanation as to why. Not right away, not that session. Uh, then your time in between sessions, you take the time and think about what's happened there. You think about it and, why would this have occurred? And then you start filling in the blanks between that session that it happens and your next session. So that when the next session rolls around, you've got an explanation should the player characters ever follow that lead and basically be like, why did this happen? Then you've got the reason. Then you've explained it. Um, and just because you didn't explain it last time, never let them see your doubt. Never let them see you hesitate on that. Just be like, oh, you have no idea why this happened. It's like, well, what about this person? Well, he's not saying. uh, have them have characters, NPCs stonewall as to why this happened, or not know and have to look into it, and they'll get back to the player characters. You do this, and you rationalize it after the fact, so that once it's been explained and woven into your narrative, everything flows nicely. Even though it was a completely unexpected event, you weave it into your narrative after the fact. That's where rationalization comes in. And all of this, all of these first four, are leading into the fifth and final. And this is the hardest tip and trick of any GM, the hardest thing for any of them to do. And that is knowing when to change your story. You need to know when to change your story, know how to adapt, know when to throw away parts of your story that aren't working. Because otherwise, you're just railroading your player. And you don't want to do that because any storyteller, any dungeon master, when they craft a campaign, even if it's just a single one-shot campaign, they have a certain narrative that they kind of lay out that they want to tell. Now, usually the best way to do it is to lay it out and let multiple branches happen. Have there be multiple outcomes from the end. Sometimes you don't do that. Sometimes you do a very linear story. Those are always the hardest to work with. I know from experience. Uh, but when you get the story going, you really need to know when to be able to be like, okay, the way they're going about it isn't going along with what I want, so I need to change the narrative to flow along with what the players want. Now, the best players will work with a dungeon master and not cause them any sort of grief, but there's always going to be things that the players do that throw monkey wrenches into any good GM's plans. So you got to know when to adapt, when to change, when to throw away what isn't working, and bring in the new. And those really are my little tips and tricks. So you got to know when to do that. You get to give allowances to your player, fudge the dice a little bit, bring in John Cena, rationalize, and know when to adapt and change your story. And those 5 little tips and tricks will help you. And even though they're not all kind of ignoring the rules, Some of them are bending them, even changing the story. You're bending your own rules, the ones that you've set in place for the narrative you want to tell. Because any good GM is like, I've crafted a great narrative. I want to see this played out, and then the players start changing things, start doing things that go against the grain of the narrative you want to tell, and you're like, no, no, you must do the story, and you can't do that. That's why you have to bend and break that rule, your own rule, the one you've set for yourself. So that's it for this episode of Character Class. If you like my videos, please feel free to tap that like button. Give that subscribe button a tap as well if you haven't already, to be kept apprised of when I do new videos. And throw a comment in the comment section. Um, any other tips and tricks that you DMs out there might like to use and play for ignoring the rules or bending them a little bit, or maybe outright breaking them. No players though. You're not supposed to be watching this video, remember? So yes, feel free to do all that. I would love to get a discussion going about role-playing games and bending and breaking the rules a little bit. And until next time, my friends, you all take care and keep rolling 20s.